You know, there's this incredible high-stakes race happening right now to connect our cities faster than ever. And at the heart of it all is a massive technological showdown. We're talking about a proven champion of rail travel going head-to-head with a futuristic challenger, one that promises to change absolutely everything.
I mean, what if a train could actually fly? It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, doesn't it? Just picture it. A massive, multi-ton vehicle full of people just soaring silently between cities.
But okay, we're not talking about wings or jet engines here. We're talking about levitating just 1 centimeter above the ground. And it's held up by one of the most fundamental forces in the entire universe, magnetism.
So yeah, this is the story of magnetic levitation. And we're going to dive into its high-speed race against the reigning champ to see which one is really going to redefine travel as we know it.
All right, so let's get down to it. Wheels versus magnets. When you really boil it down, the fundamental difference between these two giants of ground transport is simple. One is about perfecting the wheel, and the other is about getting rid of it completely.
Think of it like this. High-speed rail is the absolute pinnacle of the classic train. It's the ultimate evolution. But maglev, that's a whole different ballgame. It's a leap into the future, using these powerful magnetic forces to literally float. And when you do that, you get rid of friction, and with it, you start to get rid of the physical limits that have always held trains back. So let's start with high-speed rail, or HSR. This is the tech we all know and frankly trust. I mean, you've got systems like Japan's famous Shinkansen, which has been zipping around since the 1960s. And get this for reliability. These trains have safely carried over 5 billion passengers. That's just incredible. It's a mature, proven, and super effective technology.
Maglev, on the other hand, well, it's a completely radical leap. It doesn't just reduce friction, it takes it right out of the equation. By using these powerful electromagnets to lift the whole train right off its guideway, it opens the door to not just way higher top speeds, but also to truly insane acceleration.
Okay, so the big question is, how do these two technologies actually stack up when you put them head-to-head? Let's get into the nitty-gritty and break down the data on the things that really matter: speed, safety, and their environmental impact.
When you look at the speed, something really interesting pops out. It's the difference between what they can do in a test versus what they do every single day. Sure, high-speed rail has hit over 500 kilometers an hour in experiments, which is amazing, but its normal daily operating speed is around 300. Maglev, though, it operates day in, day out at 450 kilometers per hour. That's a 50% jump in the speed you'd actually experience. And you know, speed isn't just about hitting a top number. It's about how fast you can get to that number. And the difference here is just staggering. A maglev train can hit 300 kilometers an hour in just a little over 4 kilometers. An HSR train, it needs more than 20 kilometers. That's almost 5 times the distance. So just think about what that means for trips with a few stops. Maglev just wastes way less time getting back up to speed.
So what about the environmental side of things? Well, one of the biggest complaints you always hear about high-speed rail lines is the noise. This is where maglev really shines. Since it has no wheels grinding on a track and no conventional engine rumbling away, it's a lot quieter. At 300 kilometers an hour, we're talking about 10 decibels lower. That might not sound like much, but in terms of sound perception, it's a huge difference, especially when you're talking about running these lines through populated areas.
Of course, none of this matters if it isn't safe. And on this front, both are impressive, but for different reasons. HSR safety is proven. It has an absolutely incredible track record built over decades. I mean, Japan's Shinkansen is the gold standard here. But maglev's approach is different. Its safety is literally baked into the design. The vehicle physically wraps around the guideway, which makes a traditional derailment, well, pretty much impossible. And finally, let's talk energy. Because there's no friction, maglev has another ace up its sleeve. It uses about 20 to 30% less energy for the same performance. So, on paper, looking at all this, maglev seems like the obvious winner, right? But what happens when all these amazing theoretical advantages crash into the messy, complicated reality of the real world? To really see how this plays out, we've got the perfect case study. We're going to look at China, because they faced this exact dilemma when they were planning one of the biggest infrastructure projects on the planet, a brand new line to connect Beijing and Shanghai.
Now, you have to remember, China isn't a newcomer to this tech. They've been running the Shanghai maglev since 2003. It's the world's first commercial high-speed maglev line. It's mostly a showcase, right? A 30-kilometer sprint that hits 431 kilometers an hour, getting you to the airport in under 8 minutes. It's super impressive. But the big question was, could you take this showcase and scale it up?
Because the Beijing-Shanghai corridor, that is a completely different beast. We're talking about a 1,300-kilometer economic superhighway. This region is home to over a quarter of the country's entire population, and it generates a third of its GDP. The existing railway was totally maxed out, completely overwhelmed. They absolutely needed a new solution.
And this is where the cold, hard engineering reality starts to set in. Remember that tiny 1-centimeter gap the train floats on? Well, maintaining that gap requires almost unbelievable precision. And as the engineering reports pointed out, trying to maintain that exact tiny gap over 1,300 kilometers of shifting terrain, with hills, valleys, and even